Hey there, scholars. Welcome to another science lesson. So far in our unit, we have been talking about our 5 senses. We learned what those senses are: sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. And we learned about the organs that process that and let us get that information. So with vision, we use our eyes. With hearing, we use our ears. With smell, we use our nose. With taste, we use our mouth and tongue. And with touch, we have different receptors throughout our skin. It's not just your hands to process information. So today, we're going to be talking about processing sensory information. So when you see something, when you hear something, when you smell something, when you taste something, when you feel something, what happens in your brain? So I'm also going to do my best to help you organize your notes. So if you don't have your notebook, pause the video, go grab it now, and then we're going to be writing out some information that we cover in this slide, which I'm going to get my notes ready. So in your notes, in the header, which is the part of your notebook that doesn't have any blue lines at the top, I'm going to write out what our notes are about: processing sensory information. And then I'm going to be writing out a lot about the information that shows up. So let's go ahead and cover sensory information processing. So the brain receives and manages sensory information. Sensory information is the information or sensations detected by the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch receptors in the skin. So let's go ahead and just finish the slide before we do any notes. So the process of organizing sensory information in the brain is called sensory processing. Sensory processing involves combining information from the different senses in order to respond to changes in the environment. So if I'm doing my notes, what I'm going to want to do is take the important bits of information and then write out just those. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write out what I would write for notes, and then you can copy those out. Those will show up right now. So I wrote out what I would write for in my notes and how I would write out my notes. So if you would like to copy my notes, go ahead and pause the video, copy out what I have written. I just took information and put it information from the slides and kind of put into my notes, kind of short, making things a little bit shorter. So the brain receives and manages sensory information, which is detected by the eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch receptors. Sensory processing, and I just wrote out the definition: the process of organizing information in the brain. All right, so let's go ahead and go on to our next bit of information, which is the importance of sensory processing. Why is it important that we process this sensory information? So sensory information from the different senses are processed in different regions of the brain, specifically the cerebrum. Information can be processed separately or collectively. It's important that information from different senses are integrated and processed simultaneously, which means at the same time. Combining and processing sensory information from a different senses helps the brain better interpret sensory information. So the sensory process helps the brain relate different forms of sensory information. This helps us better understand what's going on in the environment. It also helps us better interact with the environment. So that's what all this sensory processing means, is you process what's being brought in so you can better interpret what's going on around you. So if I'm going to write out my notes, and then you can copy those out. Let me make sure this gets a little bit bigger so you can see it better. There we go. All right, here's those notes that I made. So what I did is after I'm creating a new section, so I skipped a line and I wrote it, importance of sensory processing, just to make it clear that, I'm starting a new section. And then I put a bullet point and I put different senses are processed in different regions of the brain. Info can be processed separately and or collectively. Combining and processing sensory information helps the brain better interpret our environment. So I took everything from that slide and I kind of condensed it and made it short, sweet, to the point. That's what you're doing when you're taking notes about something. You're pulling out the important bits so that you can refer back to it later. All right, so let's go ahead and look at another section. And let's look at examples of sensory processing integration. So integration, combining more than one sensory processing in together. So the first one we're going to look at is touch and vision, also known as hand-eye coordination. So with hand-eye coordination, what you visually perceive about an object is integrated with what you tactilely perceive about that same object. This is important because your eyes cannot freely move around. They can move left, right, up, down, but they stay fixated on your head. Whereas your hand, I can go forward, backwards, up, down, all around. I have a lot more free of a movement with my hand. So your hand has can help you better sense an object that you see. So I'm going to write some notes for that, and it'll look like, all right, there's those notes for you. I wrote out a new section talking about examples of sensory processing integration, and our first one is touch and vision, which is known as hand-eye coordination, and it combines what I see and tactilely perceive about the same object. Let's go ahead and look at another example. And that is taste and smell. So your ability to taste is taste a substance is greatly enhanced by the ability to smell. So your tongue has sensory structures that detect the taste of a substance. Odor molecules from that substance can travel to the nose and stimulate olfactory receptors in the nose, which enhances the ability to taste the substance. When the ability to smell is impaired, the ability to taste is reduced. This explains why when you have a cold, it makes it harder to taste some food. So if I'm going to make some notes of that, I'm essentially just adding on to my examples of sensory processing information, and I'm going to add a new bullet point of taste and smell. And I'm essentially going to write out the same thing I did about touch and vision, but involving the taste and smell, kind of like this. So taste and smell combines what I taste and smell about the same object. If you want to write out that it improves or greatly enhances the ability, or your taste is greatly enhanced by your ability to smell, you can add that also. All right, let's go ahead and look at our last one. Example is vision and hearing. So when the brain combines visually and auditory information, we better understand what's going on around us. So when we hear something, we often look towards the source of the sound to better understand the sensory information. Looking towards the source of the sound helps us better understand the true location of things that are going on around us. The example, I think, is I hear the ice cream truck coming around the block, but I do not know where it is. So I start looking around for it, trying to process where's that sound coming from so that I can taste some delicious ice cream. So I'm going to write out pretty much the same of what I wrote out the other ones, just explaining that I'm combining information from visual and auditory. All right, there's those notes. That one's short, sweet, to the point. So go through your notes and you'll notice I have my header. I have bullet points. Those are just to get bits of information. You don't have to write incomplete sentences with your notes. And if you need to, you can always pause the video to catch up. So I'm going to slowly scroll through so you can get those all written out. All right, that's all I got for you this time. Be sure to, on Google Classroom, go take that Google form about the information that I gave you today. And I'll see you next time.